We'll continue with chapter of Siyam. Alhamdulillah, we finished basically most of what relates to Ramadan. But now, yesterday we talked about making up for missed days in Ramadan. The summary is that they don't have to be continuous. You can separate them. The other point is, if somebody, for some reason, doesn't make up for the Siyam before the next Ramadan, he does not or she does not have to pay a fidya. They don't have to feed the poor on top of making up for the fasting, because most scholars said that they would have to feed the poor on top of making up for those days, because they neglected to fast until the following Ramadan came. Okay, that's what most scholars say, but there's no evidence to that effect. No evidence to that effect. Khalas, we talked about that. We'll go back now. Other things relating to Qada Ramadan, and then Ayam al-Nahy and Ayam Manhi Anha. Yes. Man mata wa lam yasum. If somebody missed days in Ramadan and he died, or she died before making up for those days. Let me read the two hadiths for you. عن عائشة رضي الله عنها أن الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من مات وعليه صيام صام عنه وليه خرج البخاري ومسلم. Whoever dies and has still some days obligatory on him for fasting, and he did not fast them, then his wali, which means people who inherit him, people who love him, his family, should fast in lieu of him. There's another hadith عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنه جاءت امرأة للرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أمي ماتت وعليها صوم نذر فأصوم عنها قال رأيت لو كان على أمك دين فقضيته أكان يؤدي ذلك عنها فقضيتيه أكان يؤدي ذلك عنها قالت نعم قال فصومي عن أمك وفي رواية فدين الله حقا يقضى. The meaning, this is also in Bukhari and Muslim. Ibn Abbas says, a woman came to Prophet ﷺ, says, my mother died, she had pledged, she made nadhr to fast, and she died, she didn't do that nadhr, she didn't fulfill it. She says, should I fast in lieu of her? He says, if your mom had a debt on her, and you went and paid the debtors, would that take the burden off her? She said, yes. He said, then you should also fast in place or in lieu of your mother, because the debt of Allah is more worthy and more deserving to be paid back. Okay, also authentic hadith. Now scholars like Imam Abu Hanifa, Ahmad, the schools. When I say Imam Abu Hanifa or Ahmad, or I say Shafi'i, I don't necessarily mean the scholar himself. I just mean the school itself. Okay, because sometimes the preponderant opinion in the madhab could be not the opinion of the founder of the madhab himself. So these schools, the Shafi'iyya, Hanabila, Hanafiya, they say if somebody continued to be sick until he died, he never got a chance to make up for that fasting, then there's nothing on him and there's nothing on his family or loved ones or his heirs, because he was ajiz, he never got a chance, and the taklif is basically lifted off him. The burden is lifted off him because he never got a chance. But if he had a chance and he did not make up for those days, they say that even then his family should feed the poor in lieu of those days. For every day that he didn't fast, they feed a poor person. How do they reconcile between this opinion and the hadith Sama anhu waliyuhu? They said, and this is how they understood it, they said that his wali, his heir or his loved one, would basically expiate for that fasting, not necessarily fast. Why did they say not fast? Because they feel that the siyam is ibadah badaniyah. It's a physical act of worship. If he didn't do it, you do it for him. That doesn't take the burden off of him, because he did nothing. But if you pay, then maybe that payment will benefit him. And because there is a hadith of Ibn Abbas that says, saying of Ibn Abbas, he says, لا يصوم أحد عن أحد. No one can fast in lieu of somebody else. So they tried to reconcile between the saying of Ibn Abbas and the hadith of siyam in lieu of somebody who died. They said, oh, maybe the meaning is not actual siyam, but to make up for this siyam somehow by feeding the poor. That's how they understood it. Okay.
Is there a number of people you have to provide the food per person?
No, you provide for each day.
For example, somebody has got 10 days being missed, huh?
Yes.
So do you have to feed 10?
10 people?
10 people is enough.
Yeah, 10 people is enough. Or you feed one person for 10 days.
Okay.
On the other hand, Imam Ahmad says, but if it was a pledge, like the hadith of this woman, he says she pledged to fast, then he would actually fast, not just pay. And he made that distinction. Anyhow, Imam Malik said no. He said nobody can fast for anybody. He took the hadith of Ibn Abbas. لا يصام عن الميت مطلقا سواء كان قضاء رمضان أو نذر أو غيره فرط أو لم يفرط. I just wanted to mention this opinion to you. What? Yeah. Yeah, he says that's his responsibility. He's dead. He should have done the fasting himself. If he had no chance, then Allah will forgive him. If he had a chance and he didn't do, then nobody can make it up for him. Nobody can make it up. This is how he understood it. Of course, but there's a hadith on this matter. Maybe he wasn't aware of those hadith. But he did say also, لا يطعم الميت إلا إذا أوصى بذلك. He says, but if he actually made in his will for somebody to feed in lieu of the days he has missed, he says then that's fine, because then he has made an effort himself. He feels that this siyam is basically, it is ibadah badaniyah. It is physical kind of worship. It's not like the zakah or something like this, or because where the money does the job. But here you physically are doing this thing, and if you're not doing it, then nobody can do it for you. But if he makes a will, he said maybe he had the intention and he made it in a will. But madhab Ahl al-Zahir, the literalist, والصيام على الميت في القضاء والنذر, basically he took the hadith just like it is. He says if somebody didn't fast and he had a chance, whether it's a pledge or it's fasting of Ramadan, then his loved ones do the siyam in lieu of that person. And he took it literally, and maybe this seems to be the safer kind of opinion. But let's see what she shows here. He says والذي أرجحه بعد ذكر هذه الأقوال والمذاهب ما ذهب إليه الأئمة الثلاثة أحمد والشافعي وأبو حنيفة أن من مات عليه قضاء رمضان ولم يقضي لعجز استمر لا شيء عليه طبعا. أما من مات بعد إمكان قضاء رمضان ولم يقضي فالذي يرجحه ما ذهب إليه الإمام النووي وأهل الظاهر وغيرهم أن يصوم عنه وليه. Perfect sense. She chose basically the opinion of Zahiriyah here, and that their opinion seems to be the most sound opinion. It cannot get more clear than this. When he says man mata wa lam yasum sama anhu waliyu, he has to fast, or maybe it's not obligatory, but it's actually encouraged for them to fast. And if they fast, it's accepted for him. It's accepted for him, because the hadith is very clear. The hadith didn't say at'ama anhu waliyu. Prophet ﷺ, if he wanted to say that they feed the poor in lieu of the days that he missed, very easily he could have said at'ama anhu waliyu. But what did he say? Sama anhu waliyuhu. And the other hadith supports it. This other woman, when she came, she said to her, Sumi an ummik. It cannot get clearer than this. So basically, if he had no chance, then that's fine. La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha. But if he had a chance and he didn't, then this opinion is the strongest. And this is the opinion also chosen by Imam al-Nawawi, the author of Riyadh al-Salihin. Although the Imam al-Shafi'i, or the madhab of Shafi'iyya, doesn't say that. So he basically diverted a little bit from the madhab, and that's, he has his own opinion. Actually, that's very common in the high level scholars to divert away from the madhab if they feel the madhab is weak in that point. And definitely it's weak in that point, okay?
Which school of thought is the most lenient in us?
You know, in every point you will find that there's no school of thought that is lenient across the board. You might find it very lenient in one. What?
So that we can follow that.
You won't find it. You might start following and then you fall into a ditch. Okay, basically, is it obligatory on his heirs to fast in lieu of this person or make up for his fasting? No, because it's not their responsibility primarily. They're doing it as a sadaqah for him. Okay? So, no, they don't necessarily have to do it. And this is the opinion of the majority of scholars. الذي يظهر لي والله أعلم صحة ما ذهب إليه جمهور منهم الشافعي والحنابلة من أن الصوم عن الولي مستحب وليس بواجب. But أهل الظاهر again, the people who take the literal, because مات ولم يصم صام عنه وليه, which means he has to fast. So they have to fast. That's what he said. They said they have to fast, but the stronger opinion is that they do not really have to fast, but it's very recommended if they love him and they want to do something good for him to fast and make up for his missed days. Inshallah, the next part will talk about al-ayam al-manhi anha, those days that we are not supposed to fast, whether they are haram to fast like the Eidain, like the Eid, or they are makruh, discouraged for us to fast. We'll talk about those. That will only take one class to finish that part, inshallah.
من أهل الظاهر مقصود بهم اللي يشتغلوا بظاهر الحديث.
يعني زي ابن حزم الظاهري. Ibn Hazm is the founder of this school يعني. Yeah. They were in Andalusia, في الأندلس. نعم.